Hello Internet, and welcome back to my reviews of the Mission Impossible series leading up to Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. Last time we covered the live-action remake of Disney's Snow White, and now, my mission, should I choose to accept it, is to take a look at the 5th official entry in the series that gets better with each new entry, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Released on July 31st, 2015, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is the first in the series to be directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who would later go on to direct subsequent entries in the series after Brian De Palma, John Woo, J.J. Abrams, and Brad Bird were one-and-done directors with Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation revolves around Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt and his team, consisting of Simon Pegg as Benji Dunn, and Jeremy Renner as William Brand, which marks his final appearance in the Mission Impossible series as his schedule was occupied with portraying a certain Avenger who wields a bow and arrow in Captain America Civil War and Avengers Endgame. Ethan and his team have to go up against the Syndicate, which is an international group of rogue government agents. In other words, a rogue nation. Ving Rhames returns as Luther Stickle, after only appearing in an uncredited cameo in Ghost Protocol. And joining the cast is Rebecca Ferguson as Ilsa Faust, a disavowed MI6 agent who joins forces with Ethan's team. Rebecca Ferguson will later reprise the role in Mission Impossible Fallout and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and also starred as Lady Jessica in Dune and Dune Part 2 among other roles. And then we have Alec Baldwin as CIA Director Alan Huntley, who would later return to the role in Mission Impossible Fallout. He frames Ethan as an alleged terrorist following the shutdown of the IMF. 1 year after the release of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Ethan Hunt became a LEGO minifigure and was part of the Mission Impossible level pack in LEGO Dimensions, where he would appear alongside the likes of Harry Potter, Finn and Jake from Adventure Time, and Sonic the Hedgehog. As always, this video will contain spoilers to Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, so if you have not seen it yet, please do so before watching this video. But if you have seen it, hop along as I give my thoughts on the 5th entry in the series. This is Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. This movie is not without the crazy death-defying stunts that the series is known for. The biggest stunt takes place at the beginning of the movie where Ethan has to hang onto the side of a plane as it takes off. And as I've said before, there is no green screen here. That's actually Tom Cruise hanging onto the side of a plane as it's taking off. All the scene needs now is a song from an early Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis title for comedic effect, along with Tails flying the tornado while Sonic hangs on for his dear life. Is hanging onto the side of the plane is because he and his team are on a mission in Minsk, Belarus. Their mission, should they choose to accept it, stop a package from getting on the plane. Luther is in Malaysia on the same mission, assisting Benji while Hawkeye has eyes on everything. Benji and Luther want to remotely stop the plane from taking off, but Ethan just hangs onto the plane because Tom Cruise is more of a daredevil than Matt Murdock. This plane is carrying a shipment of nerve gas being moved by the evil organization the Syndicate. The leader of the Syndicate is Solomon Lane, played by Sean Harris, who returns in Mission Impossible Fallout. And after Benji has trouble hacking into the plane, opening the door and preventing takeoff, Ethan sends the shipment of nerve gas out of the plane and into the film's opening title sequence, which again spoils important scenes from later on in the film. But there is no context, so people watching this movie for the first time are safe. We then cut to London, where Gun headquarters is located in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Ethan walks into a music store looking for a vinyl record, which was a thing back in the 1950s and 1960s, yet are still being sold in 2025 as collector's items and are more valuable than CDs or cassette tapes. A lot of modern songs and soundtracks are on vinyl records nowadays. Ethan obtains a vinyl record and finds a record player with a handprint scanner. But this mission briefing is actually a trap set up by the Syndicate. In the recording, the Syndicate reveals to Ethan that the nerve gas was being shipped to Damascus. Before he's gas unconscious, he sees a blonde man in glasses, who turns out to be Solomon Lane, leader of the Syndicate. He kills the woman who gave Ethan the vinyl record. Then things quickly go to shit. In Washington, D.C., we see Alec Baldwin, who previously starred in such films as Beetlejuice, The Hunt for Red October alongside Sean Connery, that awful Cat in the Hat movie that still gives me nightmares to this day, Madagascar Escape to Africa, and several other films. He and his 3 brothers Daniel, William, and Stephen are all actors, and they were made fun of in South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, as America declares war on Canada over a fucking Terrence and Phillip movie. Alec Baldwin was even parodied in Team America World Police as a puppet. And on Saturday Night Live, he impersonated a certain somebody who I don't want to mention here, as it would cause my channel to be demonetized, and the comment section of this video to end up like screenings of a Minecraft movie when they get to the chicken jockey scene. Alec Baldwin convinces the Senate committee to decommission the IMF and assimilate it into the CIA following the events of Ghost Protocol. with a disarmed nuclear missile grazing the building where Sonic dropped his bag of rings in the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And throughout these reviews, whenever we get to certain cities and landmarks, expect me to make references to the Sonic the Hedgehog movie trilogy, because every single video on this channel that's not a McInerney76 film review is all about Sonic. Alec Baldwin even brings up the events of the first film where Ethan broke into CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia to steal the knock list. And in this committee hearing, Hawkeye is in the room with Alec Baldwin. But their decision is unanimous, and the IMF is shut down for good following the events of Ghost Protocol. So, pretty much the Mission Impossible equivalent of the Sokovia Accords from Captain America Civil War. Ethan wakes up tied to a pole where he is tortured by former KGB agent Yannick Bone Dr. Winter. And also in the room is Ilsa Faust, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who helps Ethan escape. And Ethan climbs off the pole in a stunt that only Tom Cruise could pull off in his early 50s. And obviously he would not be shot at with real bullets, because I don't think any film actor wants to take that risk, not even Tom Cruise. Back in London, Ethan calls Hawkeye in an encrypted call warning him that the Syndicate is real and that their entire team is fucked beyond belief. But things get even more complicated as Hawkeye reveals to Ethan what happened during the Senate committee meeting with Alec Baldwin, and that he was ordered to bring him in. 6 months have passed, and Ethan is a wanted fugitive hiding out in Havana, Cuba, where the CIA is closing in on him. But the CIA discovers a map on the wall of suspected members of the Syndicate, meaning that Ethan is hell-bent on bringing down the Syndicate, who has caused a whole bunch of chaos around the world, like Hydra and Captain America the Winter Soldier. We then cut to Benji playing Halo 5 Guardians on an Xbox One.
Well then, it looks like Simon Pegg is also an Xbox gamer! Take that, PS4 punk!
Well, to be fair, Xbox Series X lad, I own an Xbox 360. That's the only Xbox console I own.
Even though that new Indiana Jones game started out as an Xbox exclusive game before going to the PS5.
Somehow I knew you'd be making a cameo when I brought up Simon Pegg playing Halo on an Xbox One.
Well, what did you expect? Also, Clayface was playing Mortal Kombat on an Xbox Series X and Creature Commandos.
Way to spoil Creature Commandos for those who haven't seen it yet!
I'm silly like that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to find a certain blue hedgehog with black eyes and white bathrobe and stop him from eating my damn sushi!
What sushi?
Hello, Tony the Purple Hedgehog here, and I've got another song for you.
No offense, but Eugene does it better than you.
I don't really do anti-sushi theft songs on YouTube or TikTok, but a certain blue bathrobe wearing Lobo keeps pestering me about it.
I do not! Are you sure, David? No. Ha! I knew it!
I mean, it is true! It is true! I only did one! Just one! The only freaking parody of What's This from The Nightmare Before Christmas!
Can I please get back to reviewing Mission Impossible Rogue Nation?
Zoe!
Anyway, where were we? Benji's then given tickets to the Vienna Opera by mail sent to him by Ethan. That's where their next mission is, after Benji is interrogated by Alec Baldwin about Ethan's whereabouts. The opera being shown in Vienna, Austria, is Turandot. Upon arriving in Vienna, Benji is given a folder containing a pair of sunglasses with a hidden earpiece where Ethan briefs him on his next mission, should he choose to accept it. He believes the blonde man with glasses will be the opera causing chaos, and he asks Benji to identify him. Attending the opera is the Chancellor of Austria, who is the primary target of assassins working for the Syndicate. So it looks like Ethan and Benji are caught in what people in Austria call a Von Trap. You know, the Von Trapp family from The Sound of Music. For someone who's painfully infamous for bad puns, that was probably the worst one you could have come up with. Well, what did you expect, Sonic Pool? I had to make a Sound of Music joke since the setting for this scene is Austria. So what, are you gonna sing a Sound of Music song and change the lyrics? Wearing a bathrobe as blue as the ocean, reviewing movies with a strong devotion, voicing 2 hedgehogs who collect gold rings. These are a few of my favorite things. When the dog bites, when the bee stings, when I'm feeling sad, I simply remember my favorite things even though my puns are bad. Okay, I'll leave you to the review then. Thank you, Sonic Pool. But anyway, Ethan and Benji were not anticipating the Chancellor of Austria showing up in the opera, meaning that things just got interesting for them. As the performance starts, Benji is sitting in a closet using his expert computer skills to track down the blonde man in the glasses at the beginning of the movie. Ethan then goes backstage in a climbing segment taken straight out of an Uncharted game trying to reach the blonde man who he believes is at the opera, and he catches a glimpse of Ilsa Faust, who helped him escape 6 months prior. Ethan spots a sniper carrying a rifle disguised as a flute, because using a flute rifle is a clever way to do covert Black Ops missions at a symphony orchestra. Because if you ever shot at with a flute rifle, you'll get the wind knocked out of you. Ha! Get it? Because a flute is a wind instrument?
God damn it, Barb!
While the opera is going on, Ethan finds the sniper and attacks him, and we see the sniper has a camera implanted in a contact lens where the blonde man in the glasses identifies Ethan. After subduing the sniper, Benji warns Ethan about another guy in the lighting booth, who's aiming a rifle at the Chancellor along with Ilsa. Ethan prevents the hit by aiming for the Chancellor's shoulder as soon as the opera singer hits a particular note. Ilsa fires at the guy in the lighting booth as he is fighting against Benji, and she and Ethan come together once more. They book it out of the opera house, only for the Chancellor to be killed by a car bomb, and as Ethan, Ilsa, and Benji drive out of there away from the scene, Ilsa reveals small snippets of the Syndicate's plan, in an attempt to maintain her cover. They then throw her out of the car as they are being shot at because she told them to. Ethan and Benji are blamed for the assassination of the Chancellor by Alec Baldwin, and so he sends out the Special Activities Division to bring in both Ethan and Benji dead or alive. So now, they are both on the run, and Ethan reveals to Benji that the Syndicate consists of disavowed operatives from around the world who are presumed dead, including 2 of the assassins who are at the opera. These operatives are members of a rogue nation, which is the namesake of this movie. In other words, the Syndicate is to the IMF what Hydra is to S.H.I.E.L.D. And before she made her dramatic exit, Ilsa told Ethan and Benji that they have everything they need to find her, and that's where they start. She slips a USB drive to them, and they use it to locate where she's headed next, Morocco. But where exactly in Morocco, you may ask? Why, it's none other than Casablanca.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
Yes, folks, that Casablanca. He's looking at you, kid. Round up the usual suspects. Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Play it, Sam. Play as time goes by. If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life. We'll always have Paris. Frankly, my dear Sonic Pool, I don't give a damn. That's Gone with the Wind, David! For a so-called film historian, you often get your iconic movie quotes mixed up. And that's a B+ on your film history exam. Will you get out of here, Sonic Pool? Zowie! While Ethan and Benji are in Casablanca, they find Ilsa testing out some equipment for their next mission, should they choose to accept it. And it involves Ethan going scuba diving without an oxygen tank. Yep, I would be like that too. But Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise. He agreed to do these death-defying stunts. But meanwhile in Washington, D.C., Luther meets up with Hawkeye, who briefs him on what went down at the opera in Vienna, and asks him to locate Ethan and Benji before the CIA does. Ilsa reveals the identity of the blonde man in the glasses as Solomon Lane, leader of the Syndicate. She, Ethan, and Benji infiltrate an underwater vault beneath a power plant in Casablanca to retrieve a digital ledger stolen from Lane which contains the names of all Syndicate operatives. A knock list, if you will. But the way in there is extremely difficult, damn near impossible even. They need to get through the main gate, go down an elevator that has a fingerprint scanner, and open 3 separate combination locks. Good luck trying to get through a Mission Impossible themed escape room, folks. However, the next security measure is the toughest to get through, because they scan the way you walk. So if you're a member of the Ministry of Silly Watch from Monty Python's Flying Circus, you are fucking cooked. But that's not the worst part. No, far from it. The worst part is that the vault is underwater, and Ethan can't use an oxygen tank, meaning he needs to get really good at holding his breath for 3 minutes without suffocating. But knowing Tom Cruise and how often I question his mental health, he's more than capable of doing just that. And so, Ethan, Benji, and Ilsa put their plan into action in a scene that would give Sonic a severe panic attack. Because out of all the heist scenes in the Mission Impossible series, I would have to say that this is the most suspenseful one since the vault in the first Mission Impossible film, since here, Ethan has to hold his breath underwater for 3 minutes. Something that Sonic can't do without air bubbles. And after a dozen close calls, since it's not a Mission Impossible movie without close calls, Ilsa brings Ethan to safety and starts his heart again since he ran out of oxygen. And you wonder why I often question Tom Cruise's mental health in the making of these movies. But unfortunately, Ilsa gets away with the disc after knocking Benji out, evading not only Ethan, but the Syndicate as well. And so, we get something we haven't seen since Mission Impossible 2, and that Tom Cruise is known for. Tom Cruise on motorcycles. Tom Cruise on motorcycles! And during this epic chase sequence, Ethan and Benji have a run-in with Hawkeye and Luther, who are looking for them following the incident at the opera. And after a somewhat happy reunion, Ethan commandeers a motorcycle and chases after the Syndicate in what is probably the most intense motorcycle chase in the history of cinema. And if you've seen this movie an X amount of times like I have, then I'll bet you anything that you'll feel the same way. After this exhilarating motorcycle chase that would look excellent in a Daniel Craig Bond film, and not so much Sean Connery or Roger Moore, Ilsa gets away with the disc, much to Ethan's dismay. He then regroups with Benji, Luther, and Hawkeye, where Benji reveals to Ethan that he made a copy of the disc. Meanwhile, in London, Ilsa gives the disc to her handler, MI6 director Adley, played by Simon McBurney, who discreetly erases the file and forces Ilsa to continue working undercover for the Syndicate. Ethan and his team can't open the file on the disc because it's an encrypted virtual red box, which is used by the British government to transport state secrets. And the only way to access it is with biometrics from the British Prime Minister, played by Tom Hollander. Not the guy who plays Spider-Man in the MCU, in which he's set to return in Spider-Man Brand New Day. That's Tom Holland. Tom Hollander, as in the guy who played Lord Cutler Beckett in 2 Pirates of the Caribbean movies. The team learns that Lane plans to capture the Prime Minister, and Ethan will stop at nothing until Lane is found. So the team books it all the way to London, where they follow Ilsa to a train station. But things quickly go to shit when Benji's abducted by Lane's men, where Lane intends to use Benji to blackmail Ethan into decrypting and delivering the data on the disc to him. But the only way to do that is to abduct the Prime Minister. Hawkeye is entirely against this, but Ethan has no choice but to abduct the Prime Minister to get Benji back. And it's then that Hawkeye reveals the team's location to Alec Baldwin. And so, Alec Baldwin flies over to London where he, Hawkeye, and Ethan, disguised as MI6 Director Adley, meet with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister confirms that the Syndicate is in fact real, and it was a secret project proposed to recruit former agents and perform missions without oversight and zero accountability. So not only Hydra, but Spectre from the James Bond films as well. Director Adley shoots the Prime Minister with a tranquilizer dart and reveals himself to be Ethan in disguise. As they're about to get the Prime Minister's biometrics, the real Director Adley shows up and things get even more complicated. Turns out that the red box is not a ledger of agents, but instead access to £2.4 million in numerous accounts. As they shoot the real Adley with the tranquilizer dart, he reveals that it was he who created the Syndicate without the Prime Minister's knowledge, before it was hijacked by Lane, after which Adley tried to frame Ilsa. So now it's a race against time to save Benji from certain death, since Ethan has the things Lane needs from the disc. Also on the disc is a video message from Adley confirming the Syndicate's activation and that the money will be enough to fund the Rogue Nation for decades. So Ethan destroys the data after deducing that Lane needs the money to fund the Syndicate. Ethan finds Benji strapped to a bomb, wearing an earpiece and a contact lens with a camera so that Lane can see everything. Meaning that Lane is the most twisted Mission Impossible villain since Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3. Lane wants the disc, but before destroying it, Ethan had memorized its contents and offers himself for Benji's safety. After disarming the bomb, Ethan and Ilsa fight their way over to Lane's location, with Ilsa taking care of Agent Vinter, and Ethan luring Lane into a trap similar to the one Ethan found himself in at the beginning of the movie, where he finds himself in a bulletproof glass cell and is gassed unconscious and taken into custody. And that's the last we see of Solomon Lane until his return in Mission Impossible Fallout. Back in Washington, D.C., Alec Baldwin returns to the Senate committee and claims that the previous meeting served as a pretext to help Ethan and his team expose and shut down the Syndicate. This convinces them to restore the IMF. Hawkeye then welcomes Alec Baldwin as the new IMF secretary, even though that's the last we see of Hawkeye in these movies, as we won't be seeing him again in further entries. I'm giving Mission Impossible Rogue Nation a 10 out of 10. It's by far one of the best entries we've gotten thus far, with some of the most exciting action sequences in a film since Captain America the Winter Soldier. I also love the screenwriting and the supporting cast, including newcomer Rebecca Ferguson, who became a series regular for the next 2 entries. And speaking of series regulars, Christopher McQuarrie did such a good job directing this that I'm glad he stuck around to direct more. Each director who signed on to direct Mission Impossible added their own special touch to it. Brian De Palma added suspense, John Woo added slow motion shots and doves, J.J. Abrams added shaky camera and lens flares, Brad Bird masterfully transitioned from animation into live action, and Christopher McQuarrie, he brought out the best in Tom Cruise, and the best in the Mission Impossible series from Rogue Nation onward. Before Rogue Nation, Christopher McQuarrie only directed 2 other films, those being The Way of the Gun and Jack Reacher, which also starred Tom Cruise. And he served as a writer and producer for Top Gun Maverick. And Top Gun Maverick, I'm definitely going to review on my channel in the future in memory of Val Kilmer. Back onto my closing thoughts on Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Where do I even begin? The motorcycle chase? Tom Cruise hanging onto the side of a plane? Tom Cruise being a daredevil? It's all there! Black and white, clear as crystal! It's all things any action fan could want and more. Exciting set pieces, insane stunts, and a Tom Cruise who just won't stop doing stunts until he's well into his 80s. And as amazing as this movie is, the next one I'm going to talk about after this just catapults it out of the water. With that said, stay tuned for my upcoming review of Mission Impossible Fallout coming soon. Till then, I'll see you all next time.